So just before we start, I'd just like to put a little short disclaimer out there. I like to call this the rose code. So if you are a woman born with a womb and the anatomy of a woman, I will be referring to women and men based on the anatomy throughout this episode. I also want to let you guys know that there may be some triggers that come up in this episode. If you are triggered at any point, then my guidance for you is to please seek professional help. I will also be referring the terms feminine and masculine throughout this conversation. And feminine and masculine energy does not mean a gender. In fact, every single gender has feminine and masculine energy. As this episode is based on the divine cycle, on the woman's anatomy of the womb space. If you are a woman listening to this, amazing. Men, don't turn it off. You might learn something amazing through this episode. And I think it's really important that I invite all types of women in all phases of womanhood to listen to this episode. If you no longer have a womb, so for example, if you've had a hysterectomy or you don't have a bleed, or perhaps you have a bleed that isn't consistent, you can still learn from this episode, as the divine cycle is actually based on all phases of womanhood. And if you do not have a bleed or you're menopausal, you can actually track the moon phases. So everything you learn from today is still valid for you. Please note that as I speak through this episode, it's very personal. Every single woman has a different cycle. There is not one way to have a menstrual cycle. So whether you have a shorter cycle, a longer cycle, a heavier cycle, a lighter cycle, please know that you are unique and it's unique to you. So there is no comparison in the way we are as women. Everything is valid and you are great the way you are. This episode is just leaning into how you can heal, expand, and just balance yourself even more. This episode is to just help you with your womb wellness. Welcome to Full of Grace podcast with me, your host, Grace Prosser, where I'll be guiding you on a journey of self-discovery, deeper connection, and a healthier way of living. In these episodes, I will be exploring topics such as self-love, community, sisterhood, faith, relationships, wellness, prayer, and living out your purpose. By discussing these topics with boldness and authenticity, I create a safe space for my listeners to connect, observe, reflect, and apply growth into your life. This podcast offers education, understanding, and practical guidance to help you live an easy flowing life. And no matter where you are in life, remember, success and failures do not determine the love you are worthy of receiving. So why not choose to live today by taking the steps freely towards a life full of grace? Take one of those deep breaths. Yeah. Yeah, we'll take a couple of those deep breaths in, so like we usually do. So just feeling your body on the chair, feeling your body on the seat, just leaving the day behind, leaving the morning behind, just arriving here right now. Coming into the body, saying hi to your womb. Just saying thank you to your body, to your brain. Our interests and our intentions here are to speak from the heart, our personal experiences to bring through love, transparency in a grounded, safe way to express, for listeners to hear, to receive, not just with their mind, but with their body. Thank you. That's how it is. You feel calm now?
I do.
Good.
Do it to make me feel calmer, Grace.
Yeah, good. I feel like I want to shake. Right then, let's go. Welcome to the podcast, Helen.
Oh, Grace, thank you so much for having me on.
Good.
It's yeah, we've been working together for quite a while now, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to start. Let's give the listeners a bit of history about how we met and what we've been up to the past 6 weeks together.
Yeah, so I think obviously, like, I always used to wear your bikinis when you did your bikini brand, and then I think we've just always followed each other, and I've always been really drawn to you. And then I think I started to see everything that you were posting on social media, and it really kind of like I felt really connected to it, and yeah, everything that you were posting with hormones and everything, menstrual cycle related. I've always really struggled
Yeah.
with my menstrual cycle, and I've always really struggled. I kind of always knew that I had, say, PMDD
Yeah.
or, PMS really badly. So I kind of really liked everything that you were posting.
Yeah.
And then we've been really good friends. We've just become really good friends.
Yeah.
And then it's just been natural that we decided to do this together. We've been friends for quite a while now, and then I decided after, I decided to take a contraceptive pill to help me, didn't I, with to control.
Was that that was just before Christmas last year, right?
Yeah, so I was really struggling with my mental health anyway, and then I knew that my periods were just, my PMS, definitely PMDD, it was so bad.
Yeah,
like exactly. Before my the week before my bleed, like I couldn't cope. I just felt so awful, and I felt so depressed, and I literally, was going to the doctors being like, I honestly feel so horrendous mentally before my period. Like I need to take something to level me out, because it's just, it wasn't normal how bad my mood swings were, and yet it really didn't work for me at all. I really thought it was going to kind of like fix me, but it actually made me feel absolutely terrible.
Because I remember when we went for lunch before Christmas, and you were saying to me, I'm gonna try this.
I remember it was Christmas Eve, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, it was. It was
Christmas Eve when I was like crying. Bless you having me.
Yeah, but it was all right. But I remember you telling me, but like, I never tell people what to do. So I'm always like, you've got to make your own choices. So I know when you were going through that and you're like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try, see if it helps. I'm the kind of person that's like, you do it, you experience it for yourself. I've also experienced the exact same thing, which is exactly why I'm on this journey.
Yeah.
And I think for a little bit of like context for the listeners right now, that's how me and Helen have gone into this like healing journey together, which is why we're here right now. But a little bit about what I do, I guess, is I help women with womb wellness, personal development, really, lifestyle wellness.
But you have, though, Grace, you've helped me so much. Like all the personal things. Obviously I don't want to talk about too much about relationships, but all the work that you've done with me as well. That's really helped me, like mental health wise as well, over the last few months. But with the pill, I remember you saying that, and you didn't kind of put it on me, but you were like, I don't really agree with it. But I wasn't using it as well for contraception. I was actually just using purely this tablet to help me mentally for my periods, because when I was due my bleed the week before, I just felt so horrendous, and I really didn't like how I felt on it. Obviously, I know that contraception is very important, and I definitely, obviously as women we need to use contraception, but I didn't find the pill worked for me at all.
Yeah, and I think that when we're talking about contraception, it's different for every single woman, right?
Yeah.
It depends where you are in life. It depends your own personal beliefs.
Yeah.
Medication's amazing. We need it. Like, you know, praise the Lord for that. But also the reason why I designed the divine cycle. So anyone listening right now, Helen and I have been doing some healing work with Helen around her feminine energy, her womb wellness, her personal development in life through your menstrual cycle. And I developed a few years ago a divine cycle method. So this is where we track our cycles, we cycle sync to the phases.
Synced. Me and you have actually
We've
synced.
synced. We are. We're both ovulating.
We're like on the same day.
Yeah. No, we're both ovulating, which is perfect. So yeah, we lean through the cycles of our menstrual cycle, which is 4 phases, which we're going to get onto in a moment. If any of you want to learn more, deeper stuff about the 4 phases of the cycle, you can listen to a podcast.
You've made me like you've made me like my menstrual cycle and everything now.
Yeah.
Like before I hated it. I was like, I hate my periods. You know, like I felt like, oh, I've got my children. Like,
yeah.
But, I just kind of like my PMDD was really bad. I even looked into all sorts of things. You know, I kind of thought, well, I've had my children. You know, I've got my 3 children.
Wow.
But yeah, I did feel so terrible. But you have made me actually enjoy kind of like the ups and downs.
Yeah.
Of my cycle and really get to understand it. And I feel like when I understand it more, it's really helping me. I mean, I've always really struggled with the divine diva part of the cycles in the week just before you bleed.
Which we will get onto in a moment, by the way.
Yeah. But you've taught me basically how to enjoy it more.
Yeah.
And it's really changed my life, and it's really helped me with my mental health as well, with my hormones.
Good, amazing. So a little bit of context for the listeners, because they're going to be like, what are they talking about? So I designed the divine cycle about 3 years ago. I started to design it not intentionally at all. I was on my journey of self-discovery, self-improvement, learning my womb wellness, leaning into my feminine energy, and this just happened. It just developed over time. So the divine cycle is a method that I use and I teach other women to help live their lives by. It's wellness related and also personal development related, as well as having the science in there. So if anybody wants to lean deeper into learning about this, they can check it out on another podcast where you can listen all about it. But for now, the thing that I really do want to let people know, just so they have the basic information, is that we have 4 phases of the cycle. Women have an infradian rhythm, right? Which means we have a 4-week clock, a rhythm within our bodies that is the flow that is linked to our womb and our menstrual cycle, because we give birth to children. We are the creators. Men have a 24-hour clock. And the world and most of the Western society is based on a 24-hour clock. And so it leaves very little room for the infradian rhythm that women have, which is why a lot of women are taught from a very young age to ignore their menstrual cycle, to get on with it. It's just a bleed, go to work, do all the things. You're over emotional, you're over crazy. There's something wrong with you. And I got to the point where I was like, I can't live in this world anymore feeling like I don't belong here. Like I felt like I never fit in. I felt like I never belonged because I was so emotional and so deeply in touch with myself. And that's when I was like, there's got to be another way. There has to be another way to live in this world, respecting the masculine 24-hour clock, because we've got to go to work, we've got to earn money, we've got to, live our lives, but also truly honoring our feminine rhythm that is being completely abandoned. And for me, I was abandoning so many parts of myself, my emotions. I was abandoning my voice. I was abandoning my rest as a woman. And so creating the divine cycle changed my life completely. And I like to say it's based on the rose, right? Everybody knows I love the rose. So for those listening, breaking it down for you, the rows is all you need to know. R meaning responsibility and reconnecting. So this is taking responsibility for our cycle, taking responsibility for our feminine rhythm, and reconnecting back to the womb. O represents orbiting. So orbiting means witnessing yourself in each phase of the cycle. Witnessing your emotions, witnessing your behaviors, or it's almost like orbiting yourself as you move through the phases of your cycle. Witnessing, looking at these little things. That's what the O represents. The S represents surrender. Surrendering to these emotions. Surrendering to what's coming up rather than trying to push them away and make them wrong all the time, which we've been told and taught to do. So surrendering into the emotions that are coming up in each phase and allowing yourself to just be with them and then letting them pass. And the E represents like evolution and expansion and all these amazing things evolving, where then we get to, from that place, elevate. So that is what the rose represents through the cycle. Reconnect, responsibility, orbiting, surrender, elevate. And so that method is what helps me and so many other women now elevate our lives. It takes time. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's a lifestyle. It's reconnecting back to what we as women have forgotten. Our language. We have a separate language to the world that we're living in. And I like to call this flow, feminine language of women. The flow state, the bliss, the waters. And when I lean into the period, being a flow that comes out of your body, it's like that is a flow, it's a cycle, you know. And we teach in the divine cycle about how that is connected to nature. The different seasons Mother Earth has, we have as a woman. So your first phase is called the womb woman, and that is your winter phase. Second phase is delicate divine, that's your spring. Third phase is Lady in Red, and that is your summer. Fourth phase, Divine Diva, that's your autumn. So again, like I said, you can check out the other podcasts where I go a bit deeper into this, but just so people know, those are your 4 phases of the cycle. If you don't have a bleed, if you don't have a womb, you've had a hysterectomy, or you're in your menopause, you can still follow these phases through the moon. Traditionally, we would always use the moon to sync with our cycle. And you probably find when you start to cycle sync, you do come into contact with either a full moon or a new moon. And you start to sync with your friends. So that's the basics, I think, what people need to know about what we're about to talk about, because you didn't even know any of this before I started teaching you.
I knew nothing. I knew
No.
absolutely nothing. I just thought my period were always clockwork. So I knew that my period was always, you know, bang on every 28 days.
Yeah.
But I didn't know any of the phases. I didn't know that we had like 4 phases
Yeah.
in our cycle at all.
It's astonishing how much we are not taught and how important it is to start teaching people and our children, so we can start to really bring, you know, that feminine essence back. And it's not to say neglect anything else, but it's like, for me, I know that fear of not being good enough or too much or crazy or over emotional was a sense of abandonment. And that was because I was just totally abandoning my cycle and my phases. So when I started to design the divine cycle, I use those names for us because they represent personalities we have throughout the phases of our cycle. Our emotions are going to determine how we're behaving.
Yeah.
And we've been taught that we've got to be like on a consistent conveyor belt of emotional security, and it's biologically impossible. We are a roller coaster. We are an ebb and flow. We're an oscillation between I'm feeling great and I'm feeling terrible. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling rageful and I'm feeling electric. Like, we get to feel it all as women. And I think when you start to understand it, that's when you start to love it, because you're like, oh, actually, I can tap into this personality. I can tap into that personality. I can design my life around it. And so now I teach women how to do this. I teach women who are single, who are mothers, who are married. I teach women who are in same-sex marriage. I teach women who are in menopause, on the pill. You know, you can learn how to do it. So I think with that information there for people, let's lean into the 4 phases that we've learned together over the past 6 weeks. It's been so much fun.
So much fun. And it's been amazing. It's really changed my life as well, because it's made me actually really love my cycle, where before I really hated it.
Yeah.
You know, when I really struggled mentally really badly every week before my period. So yeah, I know I have I've really enjoyed it.
I can tell by your smile.
Yeah, I know. And I'm wearing a red dress.
Yes,
Lady in Red, which is my favorite phase. But yeah, I think it's just understanding it. And I think as we've worked together as well, I think what I did a lot of last year as well, I'm a single mom of 3, and I was always working. I think I very much kind of, to cope, was very much my masculine energy, and really cut off my emotions. I didn't really let myself feel at all.
Yeah.
You know, I just wouldn't let myself feel. So I think that's why I struggled so much every time my period would, you know, the week before my period, I would struggle so much emotionally, I think, because I just didn't let myself feel anything. And I was constantly in this like unnatural state of masculine energy all the time. And then, look, you know, working a lot and then having 3 children. And their dad lives, you know, about 5 hours away. So I very much took on this unnatural, constant masculine energy. And I felt like doing this has actually helped me come back to me. And, you know, it's been really lovely, you know, being able to feel all my emotions and not for that to be wrong and not to be weak. It's okay. It's okay to cry, actually. I'm not being weak because I'm crying. This is actually how I feel. And actually constantly suppressing all those emotions really isn't healthy for you. And kind of really dealing with my emotions properly and letting myself be my feminine energy has really helped me with my mental health massively. Because that's what we're taught, you know, isn't it? You know, before our periods, oh, you're being too emotional, or you're being mental, or you're, you know, you're acting like a psycho, or you're doing this. Actually, you know, it's quite healthy. And I feel like actually when you stop suppressing your emotions and you start to let yourself feel again, you actually deal with them a lot better.
This is the thing. It's like, this is what I say to women that ask about this. By the way, so beautifully said what you've just said. Gorgeous. Thank you for sharing it. And I'm sure so many people will resonate with every single one of those words you just said. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that it's the resistance that actually causes us even more pain.
Yeah.
When we are resistant and pushing away these natural emotions that are scientifically embedded in our bodies as women, we are pushing away our natural rhythm as women. We are literally saying, I don't want you. I don't want anything to do with you. And in that is where it's even more painful. So that's why the cycle, like you said, helps you in each phase, because we have the different emotions that come up in each phase, good and bad ones. But you learn how to really cope, deal, and I wouldn't even say control, but navigate them, navigate it a little bit better. And again, like, it takes time and patience, and it actually takes a lot of courage. So I also want to say thank you to you for courageously stepping into that, because when you were born into a world where you have a womb, you're expected to live like you don't have one. And it takes a lot of courage to step away out of that, kind of matrix society where we've been told, do it this way, and that way for you to be good enough, successful enough. What that's done is I believe it's re-enslaved women to feel like we have to do it all the time and never break.
And there's almost that kind of like, oh, get on with it all the time, but there's almost that kind of, I don't know how else to say it, which sounds better, but that kind of like boss bitch mentality.
Yeah.
We've constantly got to be in that and be in your masculine energy. And I think there is a time where you mentally break because we're not, you're not designed to,
Amen.
You're not designed to be constantly in this masculine energy.
Yeah.
We are women. And I do feel like this year as well, personally, I've had a really difficult year, but having time out, I've been able to work with you. You've massively helped me with like a lot of healing. Obviously, I don't really want to talk about like relationships and stuff, but a lot of healing, but also massively coming back to that feminine energy and dealing with my emotions, because I had a lot of emotional things that were making me unwell, and I think connected to the cycle. It's just helped me so much. And you've taught me things as well, on the week with Divine Diva, the week before the bleed, how bad it was. And you brought things to my attention about my diet. I really struggle a little bit with my diet. Unfortunately, a lot of women, I struggled like with an eating disorder when I was younger. And I think when you have something like that, it doesn't always totally go. So I really try now and be like, what is my nutrition like to balance out my hormones? And that's really helped me a bit more, because I didn't relate as well, like my diet to my hormones at all. I didn't really think of it before. Just wouldn't even come into my head. And kind of how also I'm using my energy. And now when I'm actually using the Divine Cycle, I'm more aware about my energy and everything that I'm doing. I don't burn myself out anymore. Like where before I would really be like quite hard with myself and be like,
that masculine. Always doing, never giving yourself permission to be like, just don't do. It's that voice that comes in and says, you're lazy, you can't do that, you've got to be a mom, you've got to be a career woman, you've got all this stuff. And it's like, whoa, hold on a minute. Like, let's bring it back to the body as well. Let's bring it back to who we are as women. I obviously love saying the word God, but for me, I know God made me this way, born with a womb, to enjoy life with it, not to burden me with it. But I was taught, like a lot of other women, it's a burden, it gets in the way, try and stop it. And that's why, we have a lot of womb challenges now coming up. I have so many women coming to me with womb challenges and they have no idea where to turn except for medication, which is great. Do your research though. Do your research. I'm not a medic, but do your research on what synthetic drugs you're putting in your body that are actually affecting your reproductive system and your brain, right? And so the natural way for us as women to lean into natural contraception, emotions, our feminine energy, even our masculine energy, even when we've got to go and get it all done. The Divine Cycle, the method, has all of that within one container. And, when it comes to natural contraception as well, you learn through your cycle where, you've got to be careful. You learn about your hormones, things like that. So it's a really beautiful lesson for us to start, leaning into as women. So with the 4 phases, I have like this little analogy that keeps it really simple for people when they want to learn a little bit more about it. Like, how do I fit it into my normal everyday life? I'm a mom. I work 9 to 5. How do I do this? What is the concept? And I like to see it as this. So say you've got a recipe you are following to cook a beautiful meal or a cake, and you get given a list of instructions. You've got to have this amount in, you've got to have that amount in, and it equals this amazing destination, this end goal of this beautiful cake that you're cooking. Now, a lot of us feel safe when we're given instructions. Okay, 1 teaspoon of salt, a little bit of chocolate there. And when we are following some kind of recipe, like a recipe for life, we feel safe because we have a plan. Yeah. And that's very masculine. And this is how we've been taught in the world to live, through a plan, right? What about the time when you follow the recipe and the cake doesn't come out how you thought it was going to, right? That happens in life. Life isn't perfect. We have ebbs and flows. We have things that get in the way. What if it turns out better than you could ever imagined? And then also, what if you decide to put a sprinkle of chili in that recipe? You're like, do you know what? I'm not going to follow the entire recipe. I'm going to put a little bit of flavor in there, a little bit of me, right? And it comes out spectacular because you put a little bit of your soul into that recipe. And that's what I like to kind of see the divine cycle as. It's like we have our cycle to follow. We had this little recipe, we had this amazing thing we got gifted with God with that was knitted into our bodies. The womb being the womb, the pelvis, the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, the vaginal canal, the cervix. That is all part of what the womb is. And it's all part of being a woman. It's all part of the recipe, right? But when we are not leaning into our soul, our substance, that little bit of chili or that little bit of sweetness, we get stuck. And so for anyone listening, it's like, what's your recipe for life? Can you try? And you can even do this in real time. You can actually go into the kitchen and try it out. See if you're the type of person that has to follow the recipe, or see if you're the type of person that doesn't follow the recipe at all, like me. Or can you meet in the middle and be like, I'm going to follow it, but I'm going to add a little bit of this and that in it. And you'll soon start to feel happier and more yourself. And you start to kind of live life through a different lens, through more pleasure, exploring parts of yourself, and then eating the cake after, which is the best part, So let's say the recipe of this cycle is the 4 personalities. So let's start with womb woman. When we went through womb woman, you introduced yourself to your own personality, womb woman. This is day 1 to 7 if you're on a 28-day cycle of the phase. The first day of your bleed is the first day of womb woman. How did you feel in the womb woman?
So in the womb woman, I always would feel always such a relief when I would finally bleed, because I knew that I would have my head back. I would feel better mentally. So for me, it's always been the week before has just been horrendous, where mentally I'm usually really struggle before the week before my bleed, and it would just be such a like a relief. I would always just be like, please, I just want to come on my period, because I knew that I would have my head back. So yeah, I kind of feel as well, what you have taught me in Womb Woman is also that we need to actually really look after ourselves and to slow down and take some time to rest, which I think can be really difficult, especially when we've been, when, we're ambitious women, and, you're driven and you need to do this and that, and you're pulled at everything. And, I've got 3 kids and, but actually taking that time to rest. And so then your divine diva isn't so hard the month after. So yeah, I've done one time with Womb Woman where I'm looking after myself and just saying no to things as well. Like usually, I think before I was working with you, I'd really burn myself out. And, when I was very much in my masculine energy, being like, no, just get on with it. And I kind of feel now I'm in my feminine energy. I look after myself a lot better and preserve my energy a lot better.
So do you think it's helped with like your boundaries of saying no, preserving your energy, and just more self-love in general, that phase?
Yeah, I definitely think so. You know, like I'm just very much aware of how much energy I have. You know, first of all, obviously, it's being a mom,
Yes.
having my energy for my children, and then obviously, you know, it's work, and then being there for, you know, my friends and other things that I enjoy. But you do only have so much energy, where before I would really mentally burn myself out.
And what a lot of women don't know in this phase is that we have like less than 50%. So I always say to people, you can't even plug a charger in to charge yourself at this time of your cycle. What are you gonna use that energy on, right? And this is individual for your life, which is great if you get like one-to-one help, because you can move through where you want to, put your energy. And with the womb woman, I always say, if it's red, go to bed. It's like, if you can see red blood coming from your body wants you to rest. And one thing I remember teaching you, which I know it really helped you, was it's like having an internal operation every month.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think when you said to me, Helen, it's, you know, it's like you're having an operation, it kind of made me think, well, no, I am going to look after myself a lot better. And I kind of feel like my motivation with it as well. I think from always working, being a mom, you know, you almost feel guilty, or you feel a bit lazy, or you're not achieving enough, or you're not doing enough, or, you know, almost kind of like fear of missing out kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel if you do look after yourself a lot better and you're a womb woman, my motivation was that my divine diva, because I'm very much a divine diva.
Yeah.
My divine diva would be a lot better.
Yeah.
And I do feel, I'm excited actually to see how much better I am in my divine diva phase, because I do think it will be a lot better. It really helped as well that I had a lot of, the children were with their dad as well.
Yeah.
So I think my divine diva will be a lot easier, because, you know, I've had that time to kind of rest. Yeah. But I kind of feel from doing the divine cycle as well, it's made me really enjoy the stages.
Yeah.
And enjoy my cycle, where before I absolutely, I hated it. You know, I just, you know, I hated my period. I hated how it would make me feel. I never struggled with the kind of physical pain from it, but the mental, the week before, you know, I just would, I really, really, really would struggle. And it was, I honestly, I remember with my ex as well, you know, he really knew, he knew my cycle, but it was almost, for me, Grace, it was almost, you know, I knew, I could feel it in my head the moment I was ovulating, because I could feel the change almost in my head. It's almost like I was really happy and amazing and on top form for 2 weeks, and then the other 2 weeks I would just feel so low, and I'd get really down, and, you know, I always used to say to my ex, just don't speak to me, and just don't speak to me. I can't cope. Like, don't speak to me.
Yeah, and that's a shame, isn't it? Because when we don't know how to deal with it, we push the people we love away.
Yeah.
When we don't know how to deal with it. And I think with men as well, they have been taught to leave us alone. Yet when we have them in our lives, we need them the most through those stages where we're feeling so low, and because our hormones have, drastically changed. And I think as well in the womb woman phase, like what Helen just said there, is when you actually rest more in womb woman, what a lot of women don't realize is, whatever you're doing in womb woman phase is going to show in divine diva stage, premenstrual phase. So if you are having a lot of struggles in your premenstrual phase, you have to look at what you're doing on your bleed week. If you're overdoing on your bleed week, you're going to know about it the week before your period comes, because they're so interlinked with each other. So the more we rest on the womb woman, you know, your womb lining is shedding from your body. It is an operation, you know, an internal operation every month. You don't go to hospital for an operation and they say just get on with it. They tell you to rest. It's the same concept. So when you're resting more here, you will start to feel the benefits of your premenstrual phase. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't go away, because it doesn't. Biologically, scientifically, it doesn't. They are our hormones. There's nothing we can do about it. That's what we've been blessed with. The one thing I love to guide women with, which you've already said, is the importance of the acceptance. And I don't think there is anything more powerful in the realm of self-love than loving your womb. There are so many self-help books out there, how to love yourself, through many, many different mindfulness teachings, which are incredible. We need them. But are you loving the one thing that you were birthed from? And that's the womb. And if you are not loving your womb, even if it's just a little bit more than what you used to, how are you loving yourself? I don't think we can truly reach a level of self-love unless we love our cycle as women. So if we're pushing it away, if we're trying to ignore it, if we're taking tablets to completely stop us from ovulating, if we're, being in this world trying not to be women, how are we loving ourselves? We're not. And I think that's the deep core message of it is the truest, deepest form of self-love that any woman can give to herself, any child, So talk to me about Lady in Red phase, because I know it's your favorite phase. This is phase 3, by the way, guys. This is like ovulation, peak energy season. It is actually our masculine energy. And it's like a full moon. So think about how the full moon shines so bright in the midnight sky. You can't take your eyes off it. It's like, wow, have you seen the moon tonight? It's like, wow, have you seen Lady in Red tonight? Have you seen her? Lady in Red, the song, was one of my favorite songs as a child, and I still love it now. The Lady in Red's dancing with me and all eyes are on her. And that's what this phase is about. You are also ovulating, so you are attracting the opposite sex. You are letting off pheromones, and naturally your body wants to co-create. So you're going to magnetize, like the moon is literally magnetizing in the midnight sky. So talk to me about how much you love this phase.
Yeah, I think as well, I think before I did the Divine Cycle, I think I always loved kind of like the highs though that I've always had, because when I would be happy, I'd be really, really happy. So obviously, I love this phase, Lady in Red the best. But I think it's almost kind of in that time as well, you're most productive. You can just get so much done and you feel great. And it's a shame it doesn't last all the time. Doesn't it? It's a shame you just can't like bottle the whole thing the whole time.
Yeah.
But then I kind of felt like actually if we didn't have our other phases, we wouldn't appreciate how good we would feel in Lady in Red. But there is no better feeling when you've got those, because it's in your hormones. Mm-hmm. It's the best feeling when you're in this phase.
Great. Yeah. And I think learning the phase heightens it more. You're like, I've got like 7 to 10 days to be a superwoman. We can literally be a superwoman in that week. We're looking after the kids. We get time with our friends. We feel good. We can go to the gym. We're prepping meals. We're doing everything that week. So I get it. Like, I love that phase as well.
And I feel like emotionally, I feel a lot stronger. And I feel like things that would say, for example, could crush me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At one time, just don't. It's almost like water off a duck's back. It doesn't bother me as much. Yeah. And like things could maybe, I don't know if my kids could be breaking things in the house, and I'd be like, oh, it's fine. It's lovely. I'm a Lady in Red. It's absolutely fine. Yeah, you just
whereas the next week it's like rage. No, I totally hear you. It's incredible. Look, you're talking about the orbit, what I spoke about earlier, orbiting, witnessing who you are in that phase. Oh, the kids have broken something.
Okay. Oh, but Grace, I feel like when I was on the Divine Diva, which I know obviously I'm not talking about Lady in Red yet, but with the Divine Diva, I felt so bad. It's so hard when you have kids as well, when you're hormonal. I remember we left something in a shop. It was really minor, but I like really shouted at Matilda, like really shouted at her. And I just felt so guilty. And I know that a lot of other mums that struggle with the hormones will get this. And I just felt so guilty. And obviously I really apologized to her. But yeah, I think it's important as well why I mean, I felt like I've had no choice, to be honest with you. I felt like my hormones were so bad, and obviously I had a terrible experience with the pill. So this was like my only choice, really. I was like, I need to, I really need to sort this, and it's been amazing. I've just like really loved it, and this is what I will do now. And I think it's great as well because I'll be able to teach Matilda.
Yes.
Because she's coming up to this now. But I also, I feel like this has really helped me with my hormones, and it's helped me mentally, which has been great for my children. Because obviously,
100%.
I'm a single mum of 3. I'm with my kids all the time. But I think it's great now that I'll be able to teach Matilda. Well, I hope you'll teach her as well. Yeah. But you'll be able to teach Matilda how to deal with all hormones better. And I wish that I knew how to do this at a younger age, don't you?
I wish I'd been taught at school.
Yeah.
Because then we're not growing up thinking we're wrong, or that there's something wrong with us, or, and I'm not taking that away from anybody who has been diagnosed with things, because like I said, this is just one thread. Your emotions are also going to be connected to your experiences in life, your environment, your job, your childhood. There's all of that to consider, right? Some people's might be a little bit higher. Genetics also play a part. We carry our mother and our grandmother's emotions in our womb. It's scientifically proven that we carry generational trauma in the womb space. I love how you also said about you love the high of Lady in Red. And I always say it's like that roller coaster, right? We're coming up to the high, we peak, we enjoy the ride, we're kind of feeling a bit of buzz when we come off the ride, and then we have a come down from those emotions and hormones.
But I mean, I've never took drugs before, but Lady in Red is almost, it's like, it must be like taking a drug because it makes you so happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you feel so good, don't you?
You feel like electric is the word. Like you feel so electric. And I think that's really important to state, because you also said that come down, that darkness, that's what the feminine represents. She represents death and rebirth. We are constantly dying and rebirthing through our menstrual cycle. The bleed meaning the death, the darkness, and then the birthing meaning, this brightness that comes up through the cycle. And when you start to understand that's what the feminine rhythm is all about, well, you start to just appreciate it a bit more, like, I'm blessed to be a woman. I'm blessed to have these things. So to end this, if you have any guidance for anyone out there who's struggling with, say, the divine diva stage, which you have said you struggled with the most.
Oh, massively, yeah.
What would you give as advice from your personal life? Like, you're not an expert, you're not a medic, you can't give like quote unquote professional advice, but you can give personal advice through experience as being Helen, like through this newfound Helen. What would you give?
Well, I think, like, speaking from the heart, I kind of felt, obviously, my periods mentally, I really struggled the week before, really, really, really badly. And when I took, obviously, a contraceptive pill that really didn't work for me and made me feel horrendous, I remember thinking, I don't think anything natural is going to help me. My PMS is the worst. I don't know any of my friends that have worse PMS. I said, no one can help me. How can anything natural like help me or like change? And honestly, I'm not just saying this, it has really, really changed my life, but also it's made me realize why was I struggling so much. And it's made me kind of deal with things, from like past relationships, from being why I was in this masculine energy, coming back to my feminine energy and allowing myself to be emotional, and it's really just helped me deal a lot, really, of my mental health and spiritually as well, and help me heal so many things that I really needed to do. So also with that helping me manage my my cycle, it's also really helped me mental health wise.
Yeah.
Dealing with things that I didn't realize I needed to deal with, that it was a lot of it was really emotional stuff that I really shut myself away from, because I was like, no, I need to be strong. I'm a single mom now. I'm not feeling anything. I'm going into this, kind of, I can't think of any better way to say it, but kind of like boss bitch mentality, where I'm cutting myself off. No, and I think that is why I struggle so much. So kind of feeling what I would say to other women is if they can resonate with that, this has really helped me. And I feel so healthy now. I feel happier.
Yes.
I feel stronger, but I
Yes.
feel mentally so much better for it.
Yeah. And it's not going to be perfect, is it? The what we've learned here today is that the feminine definitely isn't perfect.
No.
And it's definitely not the same. So we're going to have months where we're going to struggle a little bit more than others. But when you're just allowing yourself to give yourself permission to be with it rather than apart from it, like see it as your best friend, then Divine Cycle becomes your best friend. And there's so many of the things you can introduce into the cycle as well. I know, obviously, you being a single mom as well, it's like it does depend on where you're at with that. So the Divine Cycle does offer many different things for.
But Grace,
many
I've still been
different
able
women.
to, even no matter how busy you are, you can still follow it.
This is what I'm saying.
No matter how busy you are,
Yeah.
you can still follow it. Because I was
Yeah.
just thinking, we've obviously had our weekly Zooms, haven't we? But you can fit that around being a mum. It's only an hour, and it's just that one session once a week. And then I've really found it helpful, everything, kind of reading up and everything, and it's just helped me really know like where I'm at. And also I might be feeling this way, or I might be really struggling with this emotion right now, but in a week's time it's going to be different.
Yeah. Well, we can just acceptance. It's just a beautiful part of acceptance. That's what healing is. Deep healing is accepting these parts of us that we've pushed away for far too long and made ugly and made painful. And I think you've done an amazing job at showing up. Like, you should be so proud as a mom. You should be so proud as Helen, not just mom Helen, but Helen, because you showed up. Even when you've got the kids, you showed up, you did it, you've read up, you followed it, and you've taken it seriously. And I think that's a really, really important part.
I really needed this, though. I feel like I needed it. I needed, obviously, the healing that you've done with me, but also I needed this. I needed to be able to cope better with my cycle.
Amazing. Well, thank you for trusting me on the journey. I'm sure we're going to keep going through our cycle. Obviously, we sync together, so that's amazing. Except for like when we're in Divine Diva and it's, what are you mad at? Oh my gosh. What are you mad at today?
Oh, voice notes.
Oh, I know. Yeah. They're very funny when you sync together, but at least and I think it gives you appreciation for other women as well, because we know behind it all, there's something in their bodies that is creating different things going on. The one thing I always ask women when I see them is, what phase of the cycle are you on? And when I know that, I can have compassion for where they're at.
Yeah.
Great one for the men as well. Always ask where your woman is on her cycle. So you learn how to love her in it.
Yeah.
But as soon as we love ourselves in it, other people can love
Grace,
ourselves
when you were
in it.
talking to me today about the delicate divine, which obviously we're both in right now, when you were talking to me, like, I've been overthinking things loads.
Yeah.
And then when you went to me, I can't believe when you said, oh, you're overthinking things because you're thinking now in the future. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, because this is what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then I kind of feel like when you understand and you learn and you know what you're in, it makes everything so much easier to kind of cope with. And you kind of enjoy it more, going, well, this is, and then you say, well, you make good decisions. This is a good time decision making. So
responsibility.
There's always positives, isn't there, in
Yeah.
each phase? And I think it's looking at the positives, and it really helps you mentally with your cycle.
100%. And you said spiritually, emotionally, and physically. That's what the Divine Cycle does. So you can go on apps and you can download apps that are going to give you the science and they're going to tell you what to do, but they're not accurate, by the way. So if you're looking at apps for ovulation, please be careful. They're not accurate. Your ovulation can change. And they don't give you any real depth to what you are facing emotionally as an individual. And that's why the Divine Cycle is so personal and so important to me to teach people, is because it's personal. You can't get that from an app. Remember, an app is masculine. It doesn't run off a feminine form. It's a masculine structured thing. It's off data and logic. So the Divine Cycle will help you with the emotional side of things. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners with before?
I mean, this is just something that has genuinely really, really helped me. I mean, I took about 3 months off work, didn't I? And in that time, I was doing a lot of healing, and also, yeah, just I had a really bad experience in December, obviously, with the pill that I really was desperately hoping it would help me mentally cope with my periods, but this has just really changed things for me.
Good.
And it's made me happy. So it's been great to be able to share it with other women.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, if anybody has any other questions, if anybody wants to reach out, please do so. All information is in the footnotes, and I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please help me to grow this community by selecting that subscribe button and liking and leaving a comment in the section below. And I'll see you next time.